Mary Oliver was one of the most renowned poets of her time. She was born in Maple Heights, Ohio on September 10, 1935, to William Edwin and Helen M.V. Oliver. Her home life was complicated, and while she was growing up, she would often retreat to the woods where she could sit in solitude, build huts out of sticks and grass, and write poetry. She attended both Ohio University and Vassar College, but did not get a degree from either institution. When Mary Oliver started writing, she was heavily influenced by Edna St. Vincent Millay, who was a famous American poet and playwright. Oliver even went on to live in Millay's house in New York. Mary Oliver was an incredibly quiet and private person when it came to her personal life, but it was while she was living in Millay's house that she met her partner, the photographer Molly Malone Cook. The two lived in Princeton, Massachusetts. Mary Oliver published her first book of poetry titled No Voyage and Other Poems in 1963 at only 28 years old. Some of her most famous work includes her two books, Why I Wake Early and Devotions to Selected Poems of Mary Oliver. Since then, she has received numerous awards. She won the Pulitzer Prize in 1983 for her collection, American Primitive. Mary Oliver died on January 17, 2019, in Hobe Sound, Florida. Now, I'm going to have you listen to Mary Oliver herself read you one of her most famous poems, titled The Summer Day.
Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
In this poem, the speaker is wondering about the creation of the earth and the animals surrounding her. She poses the question of who created the earth without overwhelming her readers. The Summer Day is a 19-line poem that is written in a single stanza. That's something that her readers like. It's so simple and easy to read. She writes in a louder form, and that is apparent from the lengths of her lines, the longest being 11 words compared to the shortest line that only has 4 words. There is not any specific rhyme scheme within the poem, but the few words that give hint of symmetry, such as the words too, soon, and do in lines 17 and 18. She uses several literary devices in the poem as well. Alliteration is the most prominent one. Black bear in line 2 and forms and face in line 9. She keeps you more connected with the poem by doing this. The last thing she does is that all of her questions about the poem are written rhetorically. She's not expecting an answer back, and she may not want one, but she poses it in such a way that makes you think, but in a peaceful way. The speaker of this poem is curious, to say the least. She wants to experience the world around her and everything in it. This poem really poses the question of what is it that makes a day well spent, and how have you been living that out? The idea of what makes a day successful is one that Mary Oliver challenges her readers to think about. It might not be in cooking a huge meal or cleaning your whole house, but rather taking the time to get to know the little grasshopper that is beside you. She talks about not knowing much about religious practices, but she does know how to be one with the earth and be present in the world that you are in. That's her whole theme throughout this poem. Learn to be more in the present, because you only get one. But why should Mary Oliver be included in a future English 2025 class? It's because her poems are all-encompassing and wonderful to everyone who reads them. Her poems deal with nature as its main premise, but it makes you question the world you live in. She was not a religious person, but her poetry poses this question for us to ponder. Her poems seem to simplify some of life's biggest questions by writing them through nature, which causes us all to slow down and take a deep breath and remember to be still. She puts our thoughts into paper, and if that isn't reason enough, just think about her impact. Not only has her books made the New York Times bestseller list, but she is also inundated within pop culture. Gwyneth Paltrow and Jessie Newman read her. Cheryl Strayed used her most famous line, "Tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" as an epigraph in her best-selling memoir, Wild. And to top it all off, Krista Tippett, who is an American journalist, had Mary Oliver on for an interview, and she stated that her poetry, specifically her poem Wild Grease, as one that has saved lives. Thanks for watching. Mary Oliver is a wonderful and yet less studied poet from the 20th century. Her works are decently well known, and for that reason, plus the ones that have already been stated, I think that she would be a wonderful and beneficial addition to future English 2025 syllabus.